Welcome back, everyone, to our next session of Big Data Days 2024. And I'm super excited to introduce to you for the first time presenting at Big Data Days is Eddie Short, who is the founder and managing partner of Transformational Insights. Eddie's a seasoned leader renowned for his expertise in driving transformative change within organizations, particularly in customer-centric strategies, revenue optimization, and operational efficiency. Having served as Chief Data Officer at Aon, British American Tobacco, and Telefonica, he has consistently leveraged data analytics and AI to enhance business processes and drive revenue growth. Eddie's roles likely involved spearheading initiatives to extract actionable insights from advanced analytics and AI algorithms, informing strategic decision making. Eddie, I'm super excited to have you with us here today for your first presentation during Big Data Days. The floor is yours, and towards the end, I will be moderating some of the questions that will be coming in.
Thank you, Jan Willem, and delighted to be here. It's a great time to be here, and I kind of just think I've got my own business, Transformational Insight, and I've just founded a new business, Intelligent Enterprise Partners, with a couple of colleagues. So we're and the entire message is really about driving competitive advantage with data analytics and AI, which I've called the Intelligent Enterprise. A concept I originally developed 20 years ago when I was building the UK and then global data practice for Capgemini. But I would call it rebooted 3 years ago when I started a doctorate of business DBA program, basically, which is a professional doctorate like a PhD, but you combine your 25 years of business experience with academic research. And my topic of research was driving competitive advantage with data analytics and AI. And what surprised me was how little academic research there is on this topic. It took me into looking in quite a lot of business theory, business practice, which we'll talk about, and combining my own expertise as to what makes things work. And the nature of a doctorate, to get a doctorate approved, you have to, whilst we want to talk about big areas like driving competitive advantage, you then have to narrow it down to a specific area. So the area that specifically of my doctorate is the contribution of the chief data officer in driving competitive advantage with data analytics and AI. And at the moment, the practice shows that that leadership group is still probably emerging, and in essence, they're not doing a very good job actually delivering that competitive performance. So part of my lessons here is the work in progress, and as we are now very excited with the adoption of more sophisticated analytics and artificial intelligence, which I sat through the first presentation from Amazon and looking at the latest Claude and other generative AI models. We have huge amounts of pent-up enthusiasm and a lot of activity, but when you're looking at the organization as a whole, you've got to basically bring this under the strategic direction of the CEO and look at how we harness these initiatives to make them organizationally embedded. And that's one of the secrets of actually driving competitive advantage. It's no good just having some really cool analytics, some cool algos. You've got to basically embed it into the DNA of the business. It's got to be built in. It can't just be bolted on. And that's at the essence of my presentation. So I had a poll, which hopefully you can contribute to. The key question is, how do you perceive your current organization and the contributions of data analytics and AI in terms of differentiating your business versus your competition? And I've got 4 options. We outperform, and our CEO believes DA and I is a critical enabler. We outperform, and our CEO believes DA and I is a supporter. Number 3, we underperform, and our CEO believes DA and I is a problem, or we underperform and CEO believes DA and I is a critical issue. So hopefully you can respond to that poll as we go and just see where you currently see data and analytics and AI in your business, and what particularly the boss, the CEO, thinks. Because for me, it's not critical if the CEO doesn't think it's critical. So that's a critical message. Oh, and last but not least, number 5, which is probably the kind of catch-all, which is the CEO is ambivalent about the importance. It's not really on their radar, which is, I think, the reality for quite a lot of organizations. So let's see how that turns out as we go through the presentation, and hopefully we'll get some results.
I have launched a poll right now, so you will be able. I will be sharing the results with you shortly. I'm just going to give everyone around 10 seconds to answer this. And while the results are dripping in, I'm going to give you another 5 seconds. And then let me close it. So Eddie, 40% is around answer 1, so that's the majority, and then followed by answer number 2, so it believes it's a supporter. But we also have 20% saying option 5, so it's ambivalent around the importance. So it's kind of a mixed feeling.
So what we're basically seeing is quite a lot of opportunities and challenges around analytics and AI, and I think the key message, the graphic on the there is kind of not reproduced very well, but it's kind of there are a lot of drivers, but we basically see that the world is operating in a truly volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. We have at least two wars going on, one in Ukraine, one in Israel and Gaza. We have complexity in terms of interest rates, uncertainty in terms of supply chains. We have organizations having to deal very strongly with sustainability and net zero. And then whilst I think COVID-19 brought a huge amount of acceleration of digital, we're finding CEOs wrestling with the challenge that with all of that business complexity, they're struggling to have the bandwidth to actually look at the opportunities to accelerate and transform the business with AI. Whole industries are being reshaped. And I think we'll be changing over the next 5 or 10 years in terms of what artificial intelligence can do, which is exciting but can be traumatic. I mean, there's a key message from Satya Nadella, which is that AI will not replace humans, but humans using AI will replace humans who don't use AI. And we see with just Office that you can now improve your productivity significantly. OpenAI and ChatGPT and Copilots are basically impacting how we produce many of our Office documents. Here I am wearing a collared shirt. You kind of, I would say, a professional services, traditional white collar type of individual. And many of the tasks that I do can now be improved and dramatically using AI. What that also means is that many of the tasks that I relied on more junior people to do when I was a consultant working in a Big Four accounting firm, working with legal colleagues, a lot of those people developed through, I would call it, an indentured apprentice model. You are bringing together data, bringing together content to assemble things for more senior people. A lot of that work can now be done by AI. So whilst individuals are significantly improved, what we'll see is that the ways of working are transformed, and actually it will be more difficult for some people to develop through the traditional models because a lot of the work that they traditionally did no longer exists. At the essence of where we think then is the real transformation is going to happen over the next 5 years. I create this concept of the intelligent enterprise. So the intelligent enterprise is this business which can effectively dynamically reconfigure itself using data analytics and AI, not just in response, but predicting in prediction of what's happening with customer and market needs. The concept is a flywheel, and the flywheel initially developed, for those of you who have studies of business, came from good to great back in the 1980s. But the concept was updated by Jeff Bezos 2001 when he was basically trying to rebuild Amazon after the dot-com crash. And how do we basically make Amazon a great organization? And he took the capability flywheel and in essence put data and analytics at the heart of his business model to spin his flywheel faster. And when you look at a flywheel, you have to say, which capabilities do we want to be truly world class at? And in Jeff's case, he chose marketing, which might surprise you. But yeah, marketing was and basically the idea was to basically be central to customers and use data around what we knew about our customers to drive offers to those customers. By driving offers to customers for suppliers, we bring more customers, and by bringing more customers, we bring more suppliers, and it becomes a virtuous cycle where more suppliers gets more customers. There's more competition for customer experience, more competition for pricing, and that as it spins faster and faster, Amazon knows more about its customers and its suppliers than its competition, and can offer the best customer service at the best price. That model has been developed there many years, but now we believe, and I believe, that this model is available to everybody. You need to choose what capabilities you want to be great at, but you really need to put data analytics and AI. And I use data and analytics. We get excited about AI, but AI is just sophisticated analytics. Let's be clear. But you want to build a model that's predictive by design. The challenge for most businesses is that they're still stuck on the left-hand side, where data is the exhaust of process. We've designed businesses for 30 or 40 years through people, process, and technology, which I would largely candidly describe as process-centric. Process drives technology, and typically people have been the business case. Save people, reduce cost. And in this new model, people are at the top deliberately of my triangle, my pyramid, because people are still, human in the loop is still critical to this model. Data is no longer just the exhaust of process. Data is also the input to process. And machine learning, which is another form of AI, is used to drive a feedback loop to actually continually improve processes and take the logic over time out of many of those enterprise systems. And I look at this paradox that we face in this world. Many of you have got in working mature businesses, you've probably got an enterprise resource planning system, a finance system, a customer relationship management system. These systems were developed bespoke in the 1990s, standardized but still customized in the 2000s. And in the 2010s, to avoid customization, we moved them to the cloud, which is great. Moving to the cloud is great, but that means that you've now got the same CRM system, let's say the Salesforce, that your competitors got. You've got the same ERP, maybe it's SAP, that your competitor has. So what differentiation do you actually have as a business? The only differentiation you have is your people and how you use data to drive those systems, to drive your flywheel. So that's the essence of our model. And stepping back, I mentioned there are multiple types of AI. The session that I was in just this morning focused very much on generative AI. Generative AI is the tip of the hype cycle, the great excitement, the transformers, large language models. But generative AI itself is just a subset of all AI. And I think when we're talking about driving competitive advantage and making sure that CEOs and board members understand the opportunities, they need to know that AI is not new. AI has been with us for 40 or 50 years. I myself developed a so-called expert system in 1989 when I was doing chemical engineering, which was used to design distillation columns, which is how you basically boil off different things in chemical manufacturing. And that expert system is a type of AI. Machine learning, which became very common in the 2000s, but became the hype of data science in the 2010s, is a type of artificial intelligence driven by data, which basically looks at understand it from data. How can I work out patterns, which can then be used to drive continuous improvement? Deep learning came from machine learning and is the techniques used by people like Google DeepMind when they first started to reinvent chess. It's less powered by data, as actually, although it is powered by data, it actually teach the deep learning model the rules of the game rather than just giving it lots of data. So in the case of DeepMind, they taught it the rules of chess, the rules of Go, and now it got the basic rules of understanding of things like protein folding, and now it's able to suddenly, where humans had understood 2,500 proteins and how they fold, DeepMind has cracked now all proteins, which is going to be phenomenal in terms of drug discovery, and drug testing, and there are many other companies. And generative AI is just the latest subset. And when you bring them all these things together, then we have the concept, which might be exciting for some and concerning for others, of artificial general intelligence, when the concept of an AI together can actually outperform not just humans on an individual task like chess, but across a range of tasks. I mentioned Amazon, and this is the capability flywheel in action. So I touched on this, but in essence, they use data-driven model powered by input KPIs, and it's 6 key steps. Which are basically a virtual feedback loop. Better customer experience leads to more traffic. More traffic attracts more sellers seeking those buyers. More sellers leads to wider selection. Wider selection enhances customer experience, completing the circle. That cycle drives growth, which in turn lowers their cost structure, and lower cost structure leads to better prices. That model, which powered Amazon, I think is now available to every business. And in fact, every business needs to have that model as a founding principle. You need to be data enabled and AI powered. Of course, your model will be based on your key competencies and your business. It's not the Amazon model of just selling everything to everybody. So you need to tune it to your core capabilities, what your business operating model needs. And that's what we do. And that's what I do with our business intelligent enterprise partners. But that's a big change. And I draw an analogy for you here, but the big change is a very big change, because we've been used to working in this world of big processes. So enterprise resource planning, purchase to pay, supply chain management, customer relationship management. We follow linear steps, 1, 2, 3. We can understand branches from those steps. If A, I do B. If B, I do C. But that process-centric model is basically derived from a 19th century structure of how we scale manufacturing businesses. Now, depending on what country you're in, you may find that you've actually got not just the greater part of your economy is no longer manufacturing. In fact, in all countries, manufacturing is a declining part. In the UK and the US, it's around 10% of the economy. In Germany and some other countries might be 15, and in certain emerging economies might be 20, 25. The reality is services of all different kinds are the bulk of the economy, and that services includes healthcare and government. And the reality is services can be delivered in many different orders. And what I would ask you to think about is you have many different channels. So, for example, you may have your phone. We're here talking through web. We may have an app. We typically also have social media channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Good old email. Our customers can interact with us through those many different channels. When you try to document those, of how is the customer, where are in their journey, what different contacts have they had, it doesn't follow a linear process. It can be done in many different orders. That's typically called journeys. And so we have to break away from this customer-centric thinking and to a data-driven model. And my analogy here on the screen is, it is a big change. And simplistically, I put it down to today, let's imagine you're in the music business. You sell music for a business. Your customers buy music from you. But that music on the left-hand side is classical music played on stringed instruments. That future music may well be rock music developed and built on synthesizers. So the essence of your customer, what they are buying from you as a product or a service, is still a music service, a music product. However, the way you deliver that product, how you deliver it, is completely differently. And many of your so-called best practices, industry experiences, are actually a handicap, not even an enabler to that journey. And what we find is convergence of industries. What's happening in many industries now could be described as business to consumer. The difference between financial services, banking, and delivering a telecom service and a retail service, there are more and more commonalities in how you can do that. And actually, by data, there is more and more synergies. And that is then a huge change, because your CEO is typically been used to doing small changes, typically thinking about business as usual with projects to drive change. We're now talking about not just so much crossing a chasm, the term used by Geoffrey Moore 20 years ago, but crossing a canyon. And we need to be able to drive that change and drive that. And so how do we think about that? So in my research, I've been looking at two business theories. One on the left-hand side, the bottom left, is called resource-based theory. It's kind of like an alter ego to Porter's 5 forces. If everybody's familiar, anybody who's in any management training will have learned about Michael Porter, the value chain, and the 5 forces. Typically, 5 forces is outward looking. What are the external impacts on the business, customers, suppliers, the marketplace, etc. Resource-based theory looks at the inside of the organization, and as I described with Amazon, they say, what's our world-class capabilities they want to develop? Amazon started with marketing. So what are the capabilities that you've got which you want to be best in class at? And then I'm looking at how you can use data and analytics to drive them. And those capabilities have got to be valuable, which is kind of a statement of the obvious, but you're looking at what is your definition of valuable? It might be revenue and profit. It could be something to do with sustainability. Rare, for an inimitable, which means difficult to copy. Those are critical things. If you're doing something that is everybody can do, it's not going to be a source of competitive advantage. If everybody can copy it, it's not going to be a source of competitive advantage. Organized or organizationally embedded. For it to be a really differentiating capability, it needs to be embedded into your DNA. And one of the challenges we face on data and AI is like technology before, we are focusing on the technology, which of course, everybody can get Claude, everybody can get OpenAI, everybody can get Google Gemini, which means that it's not rare or difficult to copy. What's rare and difficult to copy is how you embed it into your business and how you drive value from how you deliver it into the business. So that's where you've got to put your focus if you want to drive competitive performance. Likewise, we live in a very volatile, uncertain world. And I talked about intelligent enterprise being able to pull information from outside. Another theory is called dynamic capabilities. And that's really how you respond and operate in this dynamic, volatile world. How do you sense things that are outside your organization? How do you seize them? And how do you use them to drive transformation? And so it's the combination of being able to sense and seize whilst also looking at the capabilities that we're driving, which is how you drive competitive advantage. And it's actually data and analytics, which should be driving your sensing and seizing to power your humans. And data and analytics needs to be able to supercharging those core capabilities to make them transformable. And I'm not going to drain this, but there is then a principled model behind this, which is backed by academic theory. A number of academics over the last 10 years have started to look at what basically drives competitive advantage. And you can say these things on the left are elements of what we would call resource-based theory, powered by data. So access to the data, what resources, which could be finance, people, what culture and governance, how we work in terms of learning, and then some specific things to do with data. How is our culture around data driven? What is the role of the CDO? And what are our technical skills? And they get marked into do tangible, intangible, and human to actually create this data and analytics capability. And we have a number of hypotheses then, which then leads to sustained competitive advantage. Dynamic capabilities is one, and the other one linked to this is how we manage our people, which is a subset of resource-based theory called resource orchestration. Suffice to say, you will not get causation in terms of your capability leads to, but you can get strong correlations. And the academic research shows the combination of these things put together in the right way will deliver you sustained competitive advantage. And actually, it's not part of this model, but a linked model is, this is the way, combining these capabilities and using data analysis as a capability is a way to square the proverbial circle between some competitive performance and sustainability, net zero, ESG. So if you're using the same data to drive your competitive performance and understand how you're performing in terms of sustainability, you can actually deliver a circular performance, and I would call it square the circle or combine people, planet, and profit without sacrificing any one of those three. So as we move forward, the capability wheel, you need to have some habits, which in terms of what do you do? So how do you actually put that into practice? And I created 7 habits, kind of plagiarizing, shall we say, with pride, Stephen Covey and his 7 habits of the highly effective leader. I've got 7 habits of the highly effective data-enabled AI-powered business or the intelligent enterprise. Number 1 is prioritizing the customer. Put the customer first. Now, again, that sounds obvious, but what you find in many organizations is that data and analytics is scattergunned around. There's some work in marketing. There might be a lot of work in finance. There's some work in operations, but they're not joined up. And sometimes the marketing people are doing their own thing with different things. And you have to my point about organizationally embedded, you have to basically put the customer at the heart of what you're doing with your data to drive that performance. Master of the external environment. This is kind of almost like becomes obvious with large language models and generative AI. Our data is trained on external data, those large language models. But what we need to do is, as if we are going to be an agile business, is constantly look at what's happening outside to see what can derail us in the marketplace. Learn those what I've called weak signals. We hear in the past about butterfly flapping in the Pacific could result in a change in the weather, a hurricane in the US. Now, I'm not talking about you finding every single butterfly, but actually finding how the butterfly is developing before it becomes a hurricane. That's what I'm talking about. So you're going to be trawling that external environment, looking for those weak signals. Critically, number 3, which is then linked to the Amazon model, is developing a metric-driven, data-enabled business model. So you are looking at leading KPIs, not just the traditional lagging KPIs of what have we done in terms of revenue and cost and profit in this last week, last month, last quarter. You're looking at the metrics, which could be customer experience. It can be page views on our site. It can be look at conversion on the site to look at how does that and have those metrics and have a forward-looking view. They will say they will drive next week's revenue, next month's revenue, next quarter's profit. If you understand those metrics, you are looking and your business is forward-looking by design. You do want to look at transitioning to a data-driven cloud-based architecture. I'll come back to that in a minute, but it's kind of like it's making sure that data is not just the output, but the input to your business. Embracing governance and regulation. So what many people think of data and everything, compliance, regulation, all right, we have to have a parallel universe. The reality is the data you need to basically meet the goals of regulators is typically the data you need to market to customers. And if you embrace them, I think like yin and yang, you can actually, as I would use a British analogy, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You can actually use the same data that you're selling to people to manage your governance processes and get mutual reinforcement. Fostering servant leadership is critical because actually data deliver competitive advantage. It's actually working with marketing. It's working with those capabilities in your flywheel that are actually at your essence that is actually going to drive performance. So you don't. Some organizations do sell data, but the way you monetize data is by improving marketing, improving sales. And that means working in the data and analytics organization as the ultimate service leader. And last but no means least, that means your data strategy needs to drive your business strategy. I'll touch briefly on the data-driven architecture because I know a lot of people are interested in that from a technical perspective. So I got on the left-hand side your traditional kind of process-centric model. What we are moving to is kind of in this very, very stylized model is a kind of building a brain around data. And that data could be in the cloud. The essence is if you think about your big ERP or your CRM process, if you lose the machine learning I talked about, you gradually are looking at data to drive a particular process and get a feedback loop. And actually, over time, you build algorithms, and those algorithms are outside of your CRM, your ERP. In essence, you're sucking the logic out of those big systems, and you're building the brain of your business in that data cloud. That data cloud can then be used to both provide democratization, provide all the decisioning insights to your business leaders, provide through bots and AI recommendations, services, and products to your customers, and actually use that to drive your processes. And in the end, you end up with a stylized version of what the e-commerce guys would call microservices API cloud headless, where more and more of your systems are microservices. And this is not something you do overnight, but in the end, we don't use a fraction of the CRM, the service, the ERP technology. Over time, they will become smaller and smaller parts of your business landscape. And actually, you can retire legacy by building this powerful brain in the cloud. Let me talk about that, what that means in practice, because I'm conscious of time. This is an environment I built for a large telco. And across the top, we see we have a data lifecycle of collecting, analyzing, deciding, and interacting. But the essence of this is, in technical speak, omni-channel decisioning, it's called. But what we are trying to do is service the customer on the right-hand side through lots of different channels, which can include telephone, chatbots, agents, web, humans, frontline guided conversation, whether they're face-to-face. And on the left-hand side, we have huge amounts of data inputs. So we have all the different channel interactions through the web, through the app. We have what we know about our customer from his history, what they've purchased, and in the case of the telecoms, what their experience of the network is. We're consolidating all of that data, and we are building models in a data lake, in a cloud. And we are creating a number of models and services. So churn, for example, is does our customer leave us or not? And one of the interesting things we find in telecoms, but it's true of other customers, not all customers are equal. We stratify customers. Sometimes people call them platinum, diamond, or you could say gold, silver, and bronze. We discovered that through data. We had gold, silver, and bronze. We also had red customers. By red customers are actually customers we don't really want, because they're the customers, whenever it came to renew a contract, renew a service, they wanted a discount, they wanted a refund, they were always complaining. Their customer lifetime value was actually negative, whereas gold customers, their customer lifetime value to us was around £2,000, $2,500. So you're trying to optimize the customers you want. And so sometimes it's actually good for customers to leave, but generally speaking, you want customers to stay. But it's that kind of level of sophistication you're using rather than your traditional custom process, which is to keep customers. We want to look at, do we actually want to keep those customers? Where are they in their life cycle? We need to understand where their life cycle. So what is the next best offer or action? Too often in a sales or customer service offer situation, we try to offer the customer something whenever we talk to them. And actually, many times, no offer, no service can be the best thing unless they specifically request it. And I'll give you an example. So going through this, typically, we all have mobile phones. We all have the challenge, which is that sometimes you have mobile phone outage, network outage. In the classic telecoms, the same time the network suddenly back up, you will be hit by, why don't you have a new iPhone? Why don't you get the latest Samsung Galaxy? Why don't you upgrade? Of course, the last thing we want to hear when we've just had a network problem or an issue with a bill is, how can we sell you some more things? We need to know the state that the customer is in. We actually need to know where they are in their journey to actually understand what the best thing is. And we actually need, when you think about all those different channels, we need to basically understand where the customer is. And we cannot understand that by just mapping a process, because we would spend years trying to map that process. We need to use data, and we need to use AI to basically understand where the customer is and then optimize what is the right offer, right experience at that time to the customer. Moving swiftly along. So that's a decisioning in, I would call it traditional AI. When I now look at generative AI and how you drive competitive advantage with that, there's lots of things that we're all looking at. Chatbots, we're all looking at the latest Copilot from Microsoft, the latest now GPT 4.0, which is omni many things interacting lots of different channels. Where can you get a bang for your buck? For me, it's contact centers. They're pretty much in many organizations, and the reality is certainly in Western organizations, they've become more of a problem than a solution. We've cut the cost of contact centers, and I say they've largely been dehumanized. They're still expensive. They still have many people in many typically offshore locations, but the quality of service is poor. The reality is with generative AI combined with AI, we can offer with natural language processing services in any language. We can feed in to our large language model everything we know about our customers, every question they've ever asked, every answer that we've ever given. We can then churn that out pretty much in real time to any customer and actually handle 99% of customers through an LLM-powered device, which will mean a lot of outsourced contact centers are going to close down. I think you still need humans in the loop. Absolutely. You want humans to basically also provide maybe very important person, VIP services. But the reality is the contact center as we know it, I think, is going to disappear very quickly over the next 3 to 5 years. Klarna in financial services, Octopus in terms of utilities are already pioneering it, demonstrating to themselves and their customers that they can do a better solution with much higher net promoter score at much lower cost using a contact center service. So last but not least, I'm conscious of time after having the glitch on the tech earlier. How do we help organizations bring all that together? So our job and my job is not to sell you more tech. My job is to how do we get that data analytics and AI into the DNA of the business? And our model is basically an accelerated 6 to 10 week engagement where we engage with the board and the CEO of the business to look at those potential capabilities, to look at the use cases of your business, and look at the data that you've actually got to understand what is the art of the possible. And ideally, within that period, develop 2 or 3 proof of concepts using the latest AI to show where we can deliver value into the business. And then, we want to transform the business. We want to cross that canyon, not just the chasm. We don't want a 3 to 5 year journey. We need a 6 to 18 months journey to cross this chasm. It's not going to fix everything, but we need to spin the flywheel of your business faster. We need to basically bring on board all the C-levels, but also bring on board the key decision makers in the organization. And we need to build a self-improving, transforming business powered by AI, measured with AI, with humans in the loop to drive change. So I'm conscious we come up to 45 minutes. My message to you is about the intelligent enterprise, and that one's picking up from Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest or fittest that survive, but those most adaptable to change. That's what you are if you've got an intelligent enterprise. You need to use data, analytics, and AI linked to a capability flywheel to understand how you can drive your business and drive your business flywheel faster than your competition. Understand your value, understand how you embed that into the DNA of your business, and that's how you drive competitive advantage using data analytics and AI. Happy to take any questions or comments, and look forward to any follow-up.
Thank you so much, Eddie, and that was a wonderful presentation, which I think really captured the essence of strategy, and also looks at some of the more practical steps in which you define that intelligence. So I thought it was very, very good. There's quite a lot of questions that came in during your session. So if it's okay, I'd like to moderate them. I'll try to do that within the next 5 minutes. So let me start with a question that has the most votes. What's a big misconception that you have found in this area? And I assume that this will be around the implementation side of things.
Yeah, I think it is kind of to that point. The reality is we have to have the tech. Yeah, let's not be about the bush, you know. And the tech is evolving very quickly. We've seen multiple iterations of GPT, multiple iterations of Gemini. We see that I think that still, if you look at the data world, everybody's saying, I can't make this work unless I have effectively perfect data. And the reality is, you know, the large language models, the AIs, are trained on imperfect data. So you need to get your head around the fact that you can get pretty good correlations and causations with quite dirty data, because, you know, we've all used Google. It's based on pretty, you know, everybody uses Google. It's based on dirty data. So yes, good data is critical, but actually you don't need to waste too much time trying to get to perfection. What you should be focusing on is how do we get this into the DNA of the business, and rather than spending all of our money on the tech, you know, the reality is you need to be spending at least half, if not more, of your investment on how are we going to make the business use this capability and embed it in the way they work, as opposed to seeing it as yet another tool that they have to work with. So that for me is the key learning that everybody needs.
Absolutely, fully agree there. Then another question is from Chu. Let me project that on the screen. Could you comment on the data privacy and implementation of AI-driven business operation? What remedies can a CEO use to address these challenges, considering budget constraints?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of concerns about things, and we hear that in the West. I'm sure all over the globe. You know, whether it's issues of technology from the US and the US pervading, or it's technology from China, and kind of. And we also see with the challenge with a lot of the large language models that they're trained on public data. And now there's been a lot of debate: is that public data, or is that data that's been available but you've stolen the copyrights by training it? The reality, as I said in one of my 7 habits, governance is both an opportunity and a threat. But I think if you embed good governance and privacy models and ethics into the DNA of your data transformation, so you will actually be doing all the right things to use data, as I've said, to focus on, am I doing the right things for my customers? And that's actually what you need to do to actually demonstrate to regulators and yourself. You don't want to be using customer data in a way that can both upset your customers, but also get you fined by regulators. And if you're doing the wrong things with data, you're probably not being effective in marketing and selling to your customers. So, as I said, for me, if you think of it almost like altruistically, you can actually think, what do I need to do treating my customers fairly, treating my customers right to actually sell them right things? That's actually the right things to actually be manage their privacy and looking at things from an ethics perspective. And that's where I think the CEO is critical in this, and making sure that your chief risk officer and your legal function are working in partnership with your marketing and sales teams. And they're not loggerheads, but they are working to optimize what's good for us is good for our customers, and what's good for our customers is good for us. I think that's kind of
great. Absolutely, fully agree there. I'm going to close with one question that I think is very specific. It just came in like a few seconds ago, so I'm going to end with that one last question for this session, and because then we need to move on. But the question is, I think, very interesting, and it says, can AI chatbots effectively replicate the personalized service and empathy provided by human call center agents? And I think that that's referring to the example you just gave. And how can businesses strike the right balance between automation and human touch and customer interaction, especially in countries like Japan, known for superb customer service and emphasis on the importance of human touch?
Well, I think it's interesting because I'd say almost like back at you, because like Japan and Korea, which are famous for customer service, almost, and particularly Japan, where there is a shortage of labor because of aging population and declining population. AI-powered robots are already, also in Korea, are already replacing a large amount of customer interactions, providing virtual reality humans to actually provide banking type services and banking interaction. I think for me, humans have to be in the loop. I'm a big passionate of that, But as I said, when I come back, that human personalized service and empathy provided by human call center agents. I don't know about the people on this, but for me, 90% of my call center and contact center experience with a human is very poor. 10% are brilliant, 90% are very poor. And that's my point about contact centers with AI. The AI can provide a very high quality service, which only the best humans can beat. And yeah, it's probably not going to provide the same kind of empathy. It might provide, you say, AI-powered empathy. But that's why I talk about VIP service provided by humans and kind of the majority of service provided by AI. I think, and as I said, I think Japan, which is known for its superb customer service, has already got robots providing drinks, providing call centers, acting a virtual reality chatbots, effectively providing banking services. So they've almost had no choice but to do it, but they've done it to a very high standard, which shows it's all possible.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that explanation, Eddie. And I think that that's a great way to end this particular talk. Thanks again for being with us on Big Data Days 2024. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you. And I think everyone here liked your session a lot because I see a lot of thumbs going up. Unfortunately, we need to close here because my next session is already behind the screen, backstage, waiting. And in the next hour, we're going to have a centralized panel discussion. And it's probably going to be a very interesting one because we have a number of thought leaders with us today. Joining my panel will be Nino Letterio, who is the president of the Data Management Association, better known as DAMA. I have Jean-Michel Keur, who is the APAC Data and Analytics Practice Lead at Google. And he's going to be joined by Kieran Hagen, who's the Data, AI, and Watson X Sales Leader at IBM. And I will be moderating the panel in the next hour. So you have around a short 10-minute break, and then I'd like to see you back in the next panel discussion. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the hour.